Hello! Today we are going to teach you how to make stuffing for Thanksgiving. Now, me being from another country, Thanksgiving isn't something we celebrate where I'm from. But I love the tradition of the white guys and those other guys, you know, the ones that eat like the, what's it called, the Bengan Barta and the chicken tikka masala, the really spicy foods, those Indians. I like how they came together to make this wonderful meal. Today we're going to take bread, an onion, cream of mushroom soups, celeries, and 2 cubes of salted butter. And we are going to make a stuffing to put inside our turkey, which we will be making later on in this show. First you take the bread, like this. Why don't you follow me around with the camera, so I'm not so far away. And you put it in as many toasters as you can find. Put the thingy here to toast it just so. Sometimes you will have to taste a couple pieces, but they should come out just looking about like this. Just a little bit crispy, nice little crunch. I like this toast. This is nice. A couple pieces over here were my first pieces. They are a little darker than they probably should be. But I'm still going to use this because it still tastes very good in the stuffing and it's not too burnt. Okay, now we are going to take these toasts, and generally I like to use perhaps 1 to 2 loaves depending on the size of the people that will be eating my meals. Back in the days of the Indians and the white peoples, they would sometimes make 3 loaves because there were a lot of Indians back in those days. Now, when you break the stuffings, you have to do it like so. Get a shot of my bread so you can see the skills that I am showing for you. This is how I break my stuffings. You don't want them too small like this. That's too small. That's too small. That's too big. You want about the size of that. That is a good size. Okay. So we're breaking the stuffings, breaking the stuffings, breaking the stuffings. And you can see that we have the loaves of bread here. Okay? I will come back in a second when this is filled and we will continue on with the show. Okay, welcome back to our show. My lovely assistants are helping me by finishing the bread. And as they do that, we are going to go ahead and prepare the vegetables, the cream of mushroom soups, the onions, which is also a vegetable, and the salted butter. Okay, so you notice that the celery is a little dirty, so we're going to come over here to our nice clean sink and wash it. I like to use the sprayer method to get all of the dirties and pubes out of the celeries. Now, once we get these cut or off the stalk, we will wash it again. Now you'll notice that the celeries are pretty clean now, free from most of the dirt and pubes. Now we are going to take the celery, especially the sweet stalks, and we are going to chop off the ends, like this. I like to get most of the green parts, but some of the whites are okay. We have enough celeries that it should not be a problem, but the important thing is to cut off the ends so that you don't have to worry about having these frillies inside of your stuffing. And now we are going to take the celeries and we're going to chop them into bite-sized pieces. Now you notice I like to cut them about that size. That is a good size for the stuffing, just about like that. And once you get good at it, you get it ready just like that. Okay, so now you notice we have the celeries ready to go. I ended up not using 1 or 2 stalks, which my children are now eating. Okay, now for the onion. It is very important to chop off, this is getting a little bit dull, to chop off the ends like so, and throw them away. And I will cut it into slit down the middle and peel off the first couple of layers, because they are the more bitter bits and we like the sweet juicy parts of the onions inside. And sometimes that's enough onions for these stuffings. You can see this is about how much stuffings we make. We may not use all of that braids, but for now that is what we are going to stay with. Okay. Now for the onions, we cut them in half, and then I like to slice them like this. Bring the shot around here just a little bit, so you can see this like this. Whoops. I like to keep it together if I can, and I'm not very good at chopping the onions, but you get the idea. And then I cross cut them this way to give it this beautiful looking onions slices. But they're diced just so. Beautiful. Now I take these and throw them in this bowl. And when we start mixing it, then you'll see they will break apart like so. Okay, let's cut out the other one. Then we'll wash our hands again to get the onions smell off of us. And we will then start preparing the vegetables to go into the stuffing. Okay. Beautiful. That is about enough that we need. We don't want to overpower the stuffings with the smell of the onions and the celeries, but when they go together, it's a beautiful combination that mix with the bread. If I am crying, it is simply because I'm happy. Happy for those white guys and those guys who make the wonderful spicy foods to come together in New York that one fateful day, so many years ago. And now we'll celebrate the preparations of the main stuffs by the drinking of Dr. Peppers without sugar. Beautiful. Okay, welcome to the next part of our show. Now we are going to put the vegetables with butter, which, as we know, makes the whole meal extra healthy. So now I take the vegetables that we have here. We have this butter, and we're going to take it and put it in the pan. Now, generally speaking, for one smaller stuffings, you want to use 1 cube of butter, 1 loaf of bread, and about a little bit less of the celery and the onions. We're doing a little bit bigger one for these demonstrations, and so we will be using the 2 batters. Okay. Generally, I start on high because I'm on an electric oven, and we let this heat up, and then I will bring it down just a little bit. Get the butter nice and melty. And we want the butter to melt before we put in the celeries and the onions. And the reason we do this is because we don't want the onions and the celeries to get too soft. We want them to have a little bit of crispiness because they will soften up quite a bit in the inside of the turkey's butt. And so we want to set this just right, so it is still a little bit crispy when we put it in the stuffing. So that way, once we put it in the turkey's butt, and then the turkey goes in the oven and we pull it out of his butt later on, it will be just the right texture, nice and soft, but not too squishy, and not too soggy. We turn this to low, now that the butter is melted. And now we can add in the vegetables. Stir this around for a few minutes. Take a good shot of the vegetables. And you can see that once we start moving this around, the onion flakes apart nicely and settles itself in. Once we start stuffing this, putting this into the bread, then it will work even better. Now, turn this on to medium heat and let it heat up, because the celery and the onions, as you can see, they have cooled down the batter just a little bit. So now we're going to let it heat back up a little bit so we can start cooking the celery and the onions just for a few minutes until it is ready to go. Now you can see I have turned the heat at medium like we have talked about, and the butter is heated back up. You can see that we have nicely coated the vegetables with the butter. The celery and the onions providing a little bit of moisture to the batter, which will help moisten and give a nice flavor to the bread crumbs. So these are just about ready. And you can see over here, while this is finishing, what I have done is I have taken some of the breadcrumbs and I have put some of the extra breadcrumbs in a bowl. And the reason is because I want to have enough room to do my work when I pour in the other stuff. So this is about what I have left. And then once it starts to cook, or once it starts to moisten, and I moisten the breadcrumbs, then I might start adding in some of the more breadcrumbs if I need to, but I may not need to, so we'll go with these for now. Okay, let's turn these off and bring this over here. And now we're going to take all of these beautiful, tasty vegetables with this butter mixture and pour them into the bowl. And then we are going to mix and moisten the breadcrumbs a little bit with these beautiful vegetables and butter mixture. Sometimes, not right now because the vegetables are too hot, but once it cools down a little bit, you sometimes want to get your hands down in there and just really, really, really go to town on these things. So I'm going to take off my watch and set it up here on the dirty counter and take off my beautiful bracelet and put it on the counter as well. And then I'm going to take off these rings. And I already have my nice washed hands, which I have washed plenty of times, just in case I need to get down and dirty with my stuffings while I moisten these breadcrumbs. Okay, so these are in here good. And now I need to open up my cream of mushroom soups. And you want to, for one loaf of bread, you generally would want to use a single cane of cream of mushroom soups. 2 canes for a bigger thing. So I'm going to plop that into here. Come on, baby. Plop it in. That's right, baby. There we go. And since I'm doing 2, I have another one. But first I'm going to go ahead and kind of mush around and moisten these breadcrumbs a little bit more. And sometimes, even when I have 2 loaves of bread, they're not big loaves. And so you kind of want to get a feel. Use as much as you need, but don't use too much. You want it to be moistened, but you don't want it to be gushy. You definitely don't want it to be soggy. And so, you notice these are very crispy, and it's already starting to go down quite a bit. And so I'm most likely going to want 2 full canes of cream of mushroom soup. But first, I'm going to take some of these out of the breadcrumbs and throw them back in, because as you can see, now we have the room. So I'm going to put these in here, give that a nice little twist with my spatula, or with my tongs, and we're going to add the other can of cream of mushroom soups. Come on, baby. There we go. Let's get in there, baby. Come on. Don't make me grab the spoon. There we go. That's pretty much the whole can. Now, the nice thing with the stuffings is you can make it pretty just by looking at it. You can see when it starts to be moistened, and so everything you have is just barely ready for this. I've added the rest of the bowl of the breadcrumbs and the rest of the soup, and so now all of the ingredients except for the seasonings are in these stuffings. Now, I have exchanged the bigger tongs for the smaller tongs because I need to get it down and dirty and deep with the stuffing bottoms, because at the bottoms we have the dry breadcrumbs and they have to be mixed evenly. And have patience with this because it takes a little bit of time. Okay, so now we have the poultry seasoning, and this is the only seasoning other than the salted butter that we put in our stuffing. And generally for a size of stuffing this big, I will use a half to 3/4 of one of these smaller seasoning pieces. And I will usually open them up so I can sprinkle them in. And while you're sprinkling this in, that will allow you the time, as you're twisting and stirring these babies with the tongs, to get a nice and even coating from all of the celeries and the butters and the cream of mushroom soups. So we're going to get really nice and deep-like with these babies, and we are going to get it really moist. And then you want to start tasting. Once you get about half or a quarter, maybe a third, of the poultry seasonings into your stuffing. So we'll sprinkle some more of these beautiful, beautiful poultry seasonings into the stuffing braids. And we will mix. Oh, that is starting to smell really, really good. I'm loving the way this is looking. Look at the colors. Look how the greens of the celeries are still there. Because all we did was cook them in the butters, but not for very long. And so the greens of the celeries are still beautiful in color. And it goes very nicely with these breadcrumbs. I love these. This is coming together very nicely, and you could see that it's starting to look more and more like stuffings. Okay. Little bit more sprinklies here, and then we will start tasting. Now you may want to start tasting from the beginning. Some people don't like the stronger stuffings. Oops. Some like it very strong. Me? I like it just right so you can taste the poultry seasonings, but it's not too strong that it's overpowering and salty. Especially with the salty butter. That being said, this is what my recipe is. You may want to start testing from the beginning. But for me, I know it's not going to be seasoned enough until I'm at least almost halfway down with my poultry seasonings. So generally I'll start doing my tastes around that time. Okay, so this is looking very beautiful. I'm going to start tasting. So I grab in here a little bit of stuffings. I don't lick my fingers or anything because I want to keep it clean. I just pull it off. And that's pretty good. I'm going to add a little more. Don't add too much at the beginning, because if you add too much at the beginning, then you have the possibility of clamping the seasonings together and not being able to mix it enough. And then when you pull the stuffing out of your turkey's butt and you serve it to your guests, they're going to take a bite and they're going to go, "Hi, this is good stuffings." And then they're going to take another bite and they're going to say, "Hey, this tastes like poultry seasonings." and they're going to spit out into their hands, and there's going to be big clumps of poultry seasonings because you didn't sprinkle it the way I told you to. And then you can say, oh, I didn't listen to this man, and I should have listened to him because he told me to sprinkle, but instead I glugged the whole thing in, and now I have these stuffings that is only half good and half tastes like crap. So make sure you don't do that. Okay, it's looking pretty good now. One more taste. This is how I like my stuffings. So for me, as you can see, I used about 3/4 of my poultry seasonings. And now, the stuffing, get a good shot of that. Look at that. Look how beautiful that stuffing is. This is a beautiful stuffing. I like it very much. It's homemade. It's made with wheat bread. You can use whole wheat bread. You can use white bread if you want. I like just the standard cheap wheat bread. You can make it as healthy as you want. You could use lace butter, but you'd probably need to put something else. Perhaps like a low salt chicken broth or something to give it this this nice soft texture. Because you don't want it to be too dry, but you don't want it to be too wet. But you notice this isn't too wet. It's still a little bit, not dry, but it's kind of flaky still. It's not gooey. Because what happens is if you make it too wet, then when you put it in the bird's butt, and you pull it out of the butt, the juices from the turkey will make it way too gooey and juicy. And it'll be all soggy, and you don't want that. And so what you want to do is put it in here just perfectly like so, and make it so it's not quite too moist, but just moist enough. And then, what we're going to do is we're going to split this out. We're going to reach in here and pull out handfuls and stuff it into the turkey's butt. And then what is left over, we are going to put into a casserole dish. And we are going to cover it. And then when the turkey has about half an hour left, we're going to take that casserole dish and stick it in next to the turkey to let it finish cooking. And what this will do is it will make a drier stuffing, and then you'll have a little juicier stuffing from the bird. And then what you do is, when you're done, you pull the stuffing out of the bird's butt, and you mix it in with the drier stuffing. And that will give it a beautiful texture that's not too dry and not too moist, but it will have that beautiful juicy flavor of the turkey and what was inside his butt when you cooked it. Very, very exciting stuff. And I'm glad you stayed here and watched our show today. And my name is not important, so I am going to close now just by saying, you are what you eat. So if you're going to eat good stuff.